Never take anything for granted. This has seemingly been the one condition my parents have enforced throughout the years. The opportunities I have been fortunate enough to experience in my life are not normal. My dad loves the fact that about half of 1% of kids have the opportunity to go to prep school. Even though he found it on Wikipedia, he has a point. If you take a second to think about it, it's pretty mind-blowing. It makes me reflect on my life, all the events that have led me to this point, and how every other person in Millbrook has had a completely different path, but somehow we all ended up in the same place at the same time. This is what makes Millbrook so unique and the opportunity so special. I grew up as part of a hardworking, manual labor-driven, middle-class family, with an ice cream business running through my mom's family for 3 generations, and my dad being a 4th-generation plumber. Schooling was not always the primary focus for my family in the past. So, going through 6 years of prep school and on to college is not normal by any means. It took a lot of explaining for my grandparents to understand what prep school is and why my parents and I would ever want that for me. But my grandparents, along with everyone else, know that my parents support me in every way possible. Since we were born, my mom and dad have spent their lives driving my sister and I all over North America for sports, investing every penny they have into making us happy, and trying to teach us every life lesson they have learned with the hope that we will grow up to be good people. All while putting aside their personal wants and desires without saying a word. My parents opened the door to 6 years of prep school so that I live a better life than they have. They believe that prep school has provided me with things no other schools could. A top-notch education, friendships and connections with great people from all over the world, and the ability to create any opportunity I can begin to imagine. When we reflect on our lives, we can all look back and point out what we could have done differently. I am lucky to say that I have been blessed with parents that provoked these changes in my life. My path to Millbrook was not an easy one. When applying to prep school, I was left empty-handed after receiving decision letters at the beginning of March. I struggled a lot mentally over the next 2 months, asking myself what I had done wrong and thinking about how I let down so many people who had made sacrifices for me. All of this was to prepare myself for the fact that I was coming up short on my goals. But in early May, I found myself at Millbrook for the first time less than a week after learning of the school's existence. Later in the day, I was brought to tears as Mr. Downs offered me a spot at Millbrook. I have always believed that everything happens for a reason, and this moment explained everything. For the first time, years of working on the little things every day to become a better person, a great student, and a strong athlete were finally recognized. I will forever be grateful that the first person to see this was Mr. Downs, because ever since this moment, I've known that Millbrook is the place that I was meant to be. As I arrived on campus for my sophomore year, one of the things I was most excited for was hockey. But after being sidelined during the month of January due to mono, I began to question myself again. There were days when I wanted nothing to do with anyone, genuinely wondering whether or not I would have the experience my family and I had imagined at Millbrook. But as I began to bury my head and go through the motions, I quickly realized that this was not an option. I thought about all the sacrifices my parents had made, the chance Millbrook took on me, and the hard work I had put into everything that got me to this moment. I then made the decision that I was not going to let one kick in the teeth ruin the best opportunity I had seen in my life. Coming to the realization that going to Millbrook is an unparalleled opportunity can arguably be the most important moment in our experience. Personally, along with others, I knew how lucky I was to be stepping onto this campus from the first moment I arrived. For me, it was Mr. Downs giving me a chance when nobody else would, and my parents emphasizing how important it would be to make the most of every second. Some of us learn along the way. There's a moment that is eye-opening, and we see how lucky we are. Unfortunately, for many of us, it's not been until recently amidst a global pandemic during which we cannot go back, that made us realize what we had. And sadly, some never learn. Whether it be nobody being able to get through, holding on to a grudge, or the light never shining down, some just never see it. So, this creates a choice of two paths to take as a Millbrook student. There's path A, the path that comes after the realization I had, that I can't take anything for granted. It leads you to become a different person, and Millbrook to become a different place. I saw myself beginning to appreciate things that I used to overlook. I became more involved, and my sense of pride to be a part of Millbrook has not stopped growing since. But for some reason, there is a group that resents you after this change. This group is the students that have chosen Path B. It's tough to understand why, but this group will make it seem as though Millbrook is a waste of time, not realizing what we have. My dad often tells me there are people in the world that would kill to be in the position we are in. He says there are people that cannot even begin to imagine the opportunities that we are fortunate enough to have. That idea is what frustrates me when groups are blind to the fact that Millbrook gives us the opportunity to change our lives for the better. I encourage you all to reflect on your time at Millbrook. Think about your outlook on our school and how you interact with it. Be honest with yourself, because I am willing to bet that your complaints are within your control to change. I have learned that you dictate your experience at Millbrook. It's easy to create a goal, then trace back the steps to square one on how you can achieve it. For example, let us say you want to be a dorm leader. Instead of talking about how favorites are picked and it's rigged, start doing the simple things that you're asked to do. Things as little as showing up to check in on time and being a positive presence in the common room. I think that you will like the results if you begin holding yourself accountable and create standards to live by. I understand that we are not always going to love Millbrook. I find myself falling into the common, the food sucks and my Wi-Fi shuts off rabbit hole with my friends at times too. We all have our complaints and not everything is always going to go our way. But these will be constants everywhere you go in life. From what I've heard, these same problems will come up in college, when you get a job, or if you're blessed enough to have a family. But the quicker we learn to make the most of our opportunities and appreciate what we have, the better off we're going to be in life. I believe that if you do not take the time to reflect and make the Path A choice, someday you're going to look back and regret it. At the very least, I believe you will miss out on making the most of an amazing opportunity. If there is one thing that quarantine has taught us, is that you never know how good you have it until it's gone. And personally, I would much rather reflect on an experience like Millbrook by thinking about how proud I was to be a part of it and how grateful I was for the opportunity, rather than be thinking about things I wish I had done differently. Thank you.